right, in this video, I'm going to share with you 12 super helpful tips for Lightroom 2018. This is Lightroom Classic, okay? So the latest version. I did an episode on my podcast, the Visionary Variety podcast, where basically we covered these 12 tips, and I got to thinking, it might be helpful if I made a video equivalent of this audio episode so that people can watch this on YouTube. Maybe I can shorten it down to 10 minutes or so. We'll see about that. And, you can follow along visually and see where these things are that I'm talking about and what it looks like when I use them. So my very first tip is on your import screen, so Control-Shift-I. My first tip is to set your build previews to embedded and sidecar. Now, I think this is a new option, a new feature within the latest version of 2018 Lightroom. What this does is when you import photos, it's going to build your previews not from the raw images themselves, making new JPEGs every time you import a raw, but it's going to use the JPEG that is embedded already in your raw file. A lot of people didn't know that when your camera takes a raw image, it's actually making a JPEG preview, maybe half size or quarter size, something like that, and it is saving that JPEG file within the raw file itself. Maybe that's why they're so big, I don't know. But yeah, so it's going to access that already made JPEG file and just going to use that for your previews. Now, what are the previews? Let's see. If I import photos, here we go. These are the thumbnail views, right? This is actually using a JPEG preview from my raw image. So this is one place that the preview gets used. Another place is if I open it, this is a preview being used, which is not quite full size. And look down here, it says embedded preview because it's using the JPEG that was already made from my camera. So Lightroom is no longer doing that task, which saves me time. If I zoom in all the way, it's using a new preview. And it still says embedded preview, and now it sharpened it up, and voila. So things are a lot faster when you use that option, and I'm really glad they did that. Photo Mechanics have been doing it for years. Lightroom finally caught on to it and are copying them. So thanks Adobe. All right, next tip number 2 is copy as DNG. So DNG is a raw image format that's made by Adobe. So Lightroom, if you have this option selected, when you import your photos, it's going to convert all those raw images, whatever raw format they're in, whether it's Canon, Nikon's, whatever format, into a .dng. So DNG is still a raw image. It does not lose any of the image quality or tones or dynamic range, nothing like that. It's not downsizing or losing any data from your image, but somehow it is smaller. I don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I can tell, it is a true full raw image. However, the megabyte size is smaller. So raw DNG images are about 20% smaller than the equivalent Canon raw images. I haven't tested that with Nikon, but I'm sure it's about the same. So smaller in megabyte size, so that saves me a lot of space over time. That's great. A second reason why I love DNG is because it contains all the data that I add to it in Lightroom. So when I edit a photo, it's going to save all of that editing develop module data over here. It's going to save into the DNG file itself. Now, it's also saving it to my Adobe Lightroom catalog, which, it's got to do that. That's what the catalog is all the edits and all of your preview images. But also the DNG has a backup of my editing stuff set. Another thing you want to check concerning this is go to Edit and Catalog Settings and make sure that Automatically Write to XMP is set. So that's going to make your XMP sidecar files if you don't use DNG, but if you do use DNG, I think it still applies, and it's going to, like I said, it's going to save all of your editing information directly to the DNG, which is a great level of backup. Also, it's really cool. You can send your DNG files to anybody that has Lightroom. They can open it, and boom, they've got all your edits right here. I sent it to a friend, and he opened it up in Lightroom Mobile on his phone, and he had all the edits that I did to an image, and that's just really cool. Very handy for backups. You can do away with Lightroom if you accidentally lose your Lightroom catalog. It's okay. Your DNGs have all the edits still in them, which is really great. All right, so I love DNG. Tip number 3, I'm going to go back to the import screen. When I, imported all of my photo shoots, I realized over time that I was doing the same editing steps to get everything ready. Before I truly edited the photos, I was doing the same steps over and over in the develop module. I'd turn up a little bit of contrast, I'd do the sharpening, I'd turn on the camera calibration and lens distortion, all that stuff. I did the same steps over and over. So I said, you know what? This is dumb. I'm going to make a preset, and I'm going to use this preset every time I import photos. So that's what I did. So on your import screen, go over to Apply during import, and you can apply a preset. This isn't a dramatic editing preset. It's not going to edit my photos for me, but you can make whatever preset you feel that is going to save you time and use that every time during import, and I really like that. So I've got it already set. I called it import setting. And when I import a photo like this one is not edited yet, and here's what it does to it. It adds a little bit of contrast, adds a little bit of vibrance, adds extra sharpening, I need to fix that noise reduction. It's supposed to be adding a little bit of noise reduction. There it is. And camera calibration, it's adding a little bit of blue saturation to the blue tones, and that's just going to improve and kind of enhance a lot of the natural tones in a nice subtle way. Oh, and then lens correction. This is important. It turns on chromatic aberration removal and also enables a profile correction, which means it's going to kind of unwarp basically what my lens does. Every lens is not perfect. They do warp and they cause little things that happen to your image that are not, shouldn't be there. And so this counteracts that and unwarps it. And it undoes the vignetting that every lens kind of applies a little bit to. So cool. So all those steps I don't have to do anymore because my preset does it for me. All right, tip number 4 is use the auto adjust feature. So auto over here by the tone control has always been here as far as I remember in Lightroom. It's basically an automatic edit, really just concerning your exposure, your contrast, your highlights, shadows, all those things. It's going to automatically, kind of say, hey, this image is a little too dark, I'm going to bump it up, or whoa, this image overexposed, I'm going to tone it down. And in the new version of Lightroom 2018, I believe they're using AI to actually look at your image, and I'm sure some kind of algorithm goes into determining, what should be bright, what's okay being dark, and it actually will adjust your image for you. But it's better now, better than the 2015 version, much more accurate and more helpful. So this tip is use it. Now it's not perfect, but it will, in most normal images that have even lighting and more run-of-the-mill photography, it's going to save you a lot of time for editing, and it's a good starting point, I think. So what you can do is when you input all your photos, if you like to use this feature, you can do Control A and auto adjust, and it's going to adjust all your images at once. Give it a second to calculate that, but yeah. So that's my tip number 4. All right, tip number 5 has to do with culling. All right, I'm going to view my image. Now, when I cull my images, I use star rating. I use 3, 4, and 5 stars. Now, my tip is turn caps lock on. Okay, now what happens now is if I rate this image, I'm going to say, yeah, this is pretty good. I'm going to rate this a 4. Look at that. It automatically went to the next file. This one's not as good. I'm going to rate it a 3. Oh, this one's better. I'm going to rate it a 4. See what's going on? As I rate them, I think it works for flagging. Let's see. Yep, I flagged it and it went to the next image automatically. Very cool. Very nice little time saver. Yeah, it's just a few seconds. I mean, yes, I can hit the arrow on my keyboard to go to the next image. But you know what? Now I can zoom through a bunch of images in no time, and that's really helpful to me. So there you go. Caps lock on. If you don't want to keep your caps lock on for obvious typing reasons, you can go up to Photo and select Auto Advance, and it'll do the same thing without you having to have caps lock on. If you're switching programs a lot, typing, chatting, whatever, it can be annoying. It looks like you're screaming at people. So there you go. Auto Advance. Tip number 6 is you can resize your develop module panel over here so that you can get higher resolution in your sliders. So what that means is put your mouse right over the edge of that border. Man, it's hard to grab. And you can move it. You can make it very small to save room. But if you make it bigger, you actually have higher resolution in the sense of the slider. So I can move much more accurately. I can move in individual numbers here if I want. I'm going one by one. Now, if this is too super small, probably not going to have that much accuracy. It's kind of jumping a little quicker. I can't control it as well. It's almost going like 4s and 5s instead of individual increments. So yeah, expand your panel over here and have a little more accurate editing. Tip number 7 also has to do with these develop module panels over here, and it is called solo mode. So right click on any of your panels and select solo mode here. What this does is it's only going to allow me to open one panel at a time. And you're probably thinking, oh, that must be really annoying. I want all my panels open. Well, I used to do that and I hated it. I had all my stuff open. I'd be scrolling and get carpal tunnel and my arms tired. There's so much scrolling, ain't nobody got time for that. So I just somehow right clicked and I don't know, I was just looking around and I found solo mode. What's that? And at first it took a little bit of getting used to, but you know what? It's really good in the end because it kind of forces you to just focus on one thing at a time. And honestly, this is probably how you should edit. You should probably start at the top. You do the color temperature, exposure, shadows, details, whatever, vibrance, clarity, and then move down to the curves. If you don't need curves, skip it. Go down to the color tweaking, do that. You kind of have a workflow now. You're moving from the top down. You can go back, doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. But solo mode saves you room, saves you time from scrolling, and it kind of helps you edit in a more efficient manner. Tip number 8 is another way to edit with a little bit more precision is to leave your mouse over a slider you want to control and use your up and down arrows on your keyboard. So, if you have a trackpad, maybe it just is not very intuitive or comfortable for you to, manipulate sliders with a trackpad or maybe even a mouse or whatever, put your mouse over and just use your arrows. Tip number 9, I'm going to show you how to view an overlay on your images that's going to show you the clipped pixels on the low end and the high end of your image. So this is going to show you any shadow pixels that are just pure black and highlight pixels that are pure white. So in your develop module, open your panel. Now this is weird. This is probably an error. I don't know if this is on purpose, but if you click on histogram, it's not going to open. You have to click on the tiny little arrow. Everything else you can click on the name and it opens, but no, not histogram. It doesn't care. So you got to click on the triangle to drop it down. So speaking of triangles, we got a triangle on the top left, which is going to show shadow clipping. I'm going to turn that on. Now it's white. And another triangle says show highlight clipping. I'm going to turn that on. All right. Now you can already see a few blue pixels. So if you got this in full screen, you're probably seeing these little things show up. Now watch this. As I slide my exposure down, that blue is growing and growing. And what is happening to my image? Oh my gosh, I'm having a drug trip. So this is actually showing the shadow pixels or the dark pixels of your image that are pure black. And that's not a good thing. You know, that means your exposure is out of whack. And obviously I'm at -5 here. But let's say you have an image with a lot of natural contrast, which is good. But maybe there's too much contrast or you're losing detail in the dark areas. That's what that blue is going to show you. So basically that blue, those blue pixels mean those are pure black. And that also means there is no detail in that area, which is not good. So maybe bump up the blacks to reduce that, or bump up the shadows to counteract that. See, as I drop my shadows, there's more blue. If I drop my blacks, a lot more blue. Wow. I mean, that makes everything black, basically. That increases the black pixels. So contrast is good, but you need to be aware. Conversely, the highlight clipping, which is also turned on, if I start turning my image brighter and brighter, you're going to see red pixels. Whoa, look at that. So that means these pixels are pure white. There's no detail in them. They have hit the ceiling and not good. So don't do that. Yeah, if you do have red pixels in your image, maybe your sky is being blown out, drop your highlights. Look at that. It already went down. Or you can drop your whites as well to help counteract that. So yeah, clipping, very helpful. Tip number 10, using your Alt key for Windows or Option key for Mac, you can see additional details that you couldn't see before. For instance, let's go to the detail panel. I'm going to hold Alt while moving the masking slider. Whoa, you're probably thinking, what just happened to Daniel's screen? Well, this is Lightroom showing me the masking areas. So basically whatever is white is being sharpened, whatever is black is not being sharpened. That's basically what a mask is doing. Now, the mask has always been there, but you haven't been able to see it visually unless you hold Alt. So that's very helpful. It's basically giving you a visual reference. Hey, white areas are not masked out. They are sharpened. Similarly, I can hold Alt if I drag the amount of sharpening, and my image just looks black and white. I can't really see what's going on. So I'm going to zoom in 100% to a nice sharp area. And if I hold Alt, I can see my sharpening a little bit more dramatically now. Go down, yeah, it's soft, all the way up. Ooh, too much detail. So Alt will give you a nice visualization. This is radius. I can see the radius of my sharpened effect. Detail, yeah, detail is showing me, what's going on with the detail. All right, so that's the detail panel. Another place where Alt does a cool overlay is in split toning. If I can actually click on it, there we go. So let's say I'm going to do, I'm going to make warm on the highlights and cool on the shadows. That's a nice default kind of vintage look. So the balance is going to balance between the cool highlights and, the cool shadows and the warm highlights. But if I hold Alt while dragging this balance, it's instantly increasing the saturations of each color to 100% just temporarily, so that I can see a better effect of, where my slider is at and where the balance is at. So if I let go of Alt, it goes back to normal. Also in curves, Alt does something interesting. Now this isn't going to show you an overlay, but it will allow you to edit your curve points much more accurately. So if you hold Alt and I'm dragging up and down, it's kind of moving them in like slow motion. If I don't do Alt, it follows my cursor. Big changes, I have to be real careful, tedious with my mouse. But if I hold Alt, I can drag in like almost tenth of percentages, which is really helpful if you want to be exact with your curves, which you should be. Don't be lazy with your curves. So yeah, Alt for curves helps you get a little more accurate. All right, tip number 11. This is a really cool one that a lot of people don't know about, I feel. You can apply a preset to video files and render them with the effects applied. So this is really awesome because, Lightroom is really powerful. You can do a lot of fixing with the values and, a lot of restoration of color and detail. You can also make a lot of creative changes with curves and clarity and do lots of cool, styled looks to your images. Well, the awesome thing about that is you can apply those looks to video as well. And I'm going to show you how. So, but first, let me do a little rant. Adobe, what are you thinking? Let me explain. Adobe Lightroom will not directly let you edit a video. I'll show you. So I've got some video files that I had taken during this photo shoot. All right, so this is a video, a behind the scenes video that one of my assistants, Nate Gunn, took. Now you can see over here, I've got exposure. I can brighten it. You can see instantly I've got changes. I can increase the contrast. I've even got whites and blacks and color temperature as well. So look at that. I've already got a nicer looking video. I made it warm. I kind of increased the dynamic range a little bit and looking pretty sweet. But I want to do more things. What about clarity? What about curves? What about color tweaking? Well, if I hit D to go to develop module, it gives me this stupid error. Video is not supported in develop. Then why was I able to apply develop changes to that video file just now? So I can do some changes, but not all of them. Well, this is what makes me annoyed, is that I can actually apply an entire preset to this video file. So watch, this is what I'm talking about. I'm going to go to save preset over here. I'm just going to do something crazy so you can really see the look. We'll do a split tone. I don't know what this looks like. So this is saying some developed settings are not supported in video files. The only following settings in the selected preset that can be applied are all of these, which is pretty much all of your settings. The ones that can't be applied are, I think, the transform, the lens, was it a profile? You can't do those two things, but everything else you can. So I don't care about this message. Go away. All right, there we go. We got a split tone. Oops. Now we got a cool retro looking split tone footage. You can do anything that's a preset. And it looks pretty disgusting because the highlights are probably going crazy. See if it'll play. Yeah, it's playing. All right, so I've got this video playing. So I'm going to go over to saved presets and I'm going to find a cool preset that I like. Let's do maybe a black and white. I don't know. What does this one do? Ooh, that one doesn't look good. The lightsaber's kind of cool. Yeah, that's nice, black and white. So once you've got a setting applied to a video that you like, what you do to make that final is you need to go back to library mode, keep your video selected, and go to export. And then you need to go down, choose where it's going to go, choose what you're going to name it, and then make sure that your video section has include video files. And I always use H.264 and then quality max, of course, and tells you your frame rate, which is really nice, and the resolution and what's going to come out in the other end, which is 30 frames per second. And I'm not sure why it can't do 60 frames per second. It's kind of weird. It's dropping it down to 30. So there you go. Another way to do this is if you edit an image. So I'm going to go to an image here. I'm going to edit however I want. And then I'm going to go back to library mode and keeping that image selected, I'm going to click the video file. And down here, I'm going to go to sync settings. So this is grabbing the settings from the image, which as you can see, everything's checked. Everything that can be moved over to a video file. So here we can see you can't do adjustment brushes. You can't do a noise reduction. It's kind of weird. Yeah, a lot of stuff it looks like you can't apply. And I'm going to do synchronize. And instantly my video, technically looks just like my photo. Now they're different to start with, so that they're not really comparable. But yeah, I just moved a setting from an image over to a video file, which it's kind of the same as applying a preset. And once they're rendered out, then there you go. Pretty cool trick. All right, my last and final tip is how to add your logo to an image. So I'm going to grab an image right here, which I've already edited, and I'm going to go to File, Export, or Control-Shift-E. The second to the bottom option is watermarking. I'm going to check watermark. And now I don't know what this preset's going to do, so I'm going to do edit watermarks. And this new little dialog pops up, which is pretty cool. It shows you a preview. I'm going to expand this, make it a little more visual. And I can type in, my business name. But I don't want to do that. I want to use an actual logo that I've made in Photoshop. Now you can make these in GIMP or Krita, which are freeware programs that basically just make your logo with your business name, whatever emblem you use, but don't do it as a background. Don't put any background layer or color or square around it. Just have text or your logo. And then save it as a PNG. PNG is a high quality image format that will contain transparency. So you can have nothing in the background and just the text. Okay, so I found one of my text overlays here. I'm going to choose it. It's a PNG file with transparency, and there it is. And now I can size it up if I go to size, And I can tell it to just fit, whatever the image size is going to be, it's going to fit it widthwise, which is really nice. It's kind of an adaptive thing. I've got opacity here, how transparent it is. I can, enlarge it this way or that way, kind of an offset sort of thing. You can align it to the center, top, center, corners, all that stuff. Very helpful. And then you can save this. Don't forget to save whatever you do. If you want to use this again, do save current setting as new preset and name it something specific so you know what it is. The orientation, which kind of logo you're using, whatever. And then you can apply that whenever you export your image. It's going to be on every single image you export, so be careful. Make sure that's only turned on if you really want it there. And I do suggest rendering images without the watermark, just for your own use. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something new. If I messed up something or if I missed something really helpful, comment on the video below and let me know a tip that you love that maybe you haven't heard anyone share before. I would love to learn something new from you guys, and I hope you learned something new from me. Have a great week, and thanks for watching. If you love this video, subscribe to my channel and make sure to share this. Thanks.